So next up, we've got Nick Leech. Nick is our Group Marketing Director, looks after all our brands, not just 123reg. In the UK on 123reg, he works very closely with our very own Karen Heaven down there in the corner, who's our UK Marketing Director for 123reg. Nick started in the magazine publishing industry with Future Publishing, which was a huge publisher, remains a big publisher, I think, selling advertising space. In 2000, he set up Shoestring Digital, an agency specialising in search engine marketing. And actually, the Host Europe Group was one of his very first customers. And then in 2012, we finally convinced Nick that his business wasn't for him and he should come and do a deal with us and come and join the Host Europe Group, which we've managed to do, and thankfully Nick's still with us to this day. Nick's going to present to you about marketing, digital marketing on a shoestring. As I just said before, it levels the playing field. The online world levels the playing field, and Nick's going to tell you a little bit about how you can do that on a budget. So over to Nick.
Okay, welcome to Digital Marketing on a Shoestring. Thanks for the intro, Matt. My name's Nick Leech. I'm going to be talking to you today about the online marketing that you can do that costs next to or absolutely nothing except for the time that you have. So these are marketing techniques that are going to raise the awareness of your website, drive traffic to your website, and ultimately is going to drive sales. So first off, a little bit about me. I've been in digital marketing since these guys were around, as Matt said. And like you, I love starting and running small businesses. And I've started a few in my time. As Matt said, the year 2000, when I launched Shoestring Digital, it was a year when there was only £1 million spent in online advertising in the global market. So that was the entire size of the market, £1 million. And just by contrast, Google alone last year took £3 billion. So it's an amazing transition and one of the reasons why they've got offices like this. And I think it's also important that I should add that the businesses that I've started, certainly not all of them have been a success. I should say something about how that's motivational, how it makes you a bigger person, but we all know it doesn't really feel like that. And this is what I do now. I'm the marketing director at Host Europe Group, and you might not have heard of Host Europe Group until today, but we are behind some well-known internet enabling brands, most notably 123reg here in the UK. So we try to look after people throughout their online journey, whether from buying a domain name, setting up an email address, building their own website, all the way through to launching an application that's hosted in the cloud. So no matter what stage you're at, we're here to help you to get your business set up online. If I skip through some bits of this presentation, you want to see it later, you can go to this bit.ly URL, Digital Marketing on a Shoestring. And additionally, anyone who has come to this event will be sending all the materials out afterwards. So why is digital marketing a good choice for small business? Well, small business, or at least my experience of small business, is that a small business has plenty of effort resources and not many cash resources. So I'm going to be showing you how you can use the resources that you do have in order to drive traffic and sales for your business. So what is digital marketing? Well, digital marketing is about driving traffic to your website with online media. So that might be Google AdWords. That might be banner advertising. It might be email. It might be social media. But there's a problem with all of these. It might be SEO as well. There's a problem with all these. Google AdWords costs money, £3 billion. So does banner advertising. And email is good, but you need to have someone to send your emails through to. So the type of marketing I'm going to be talking about today is going to help you with your SEO, and it's going to help you with your social media. And all it costs you is some effort. So I'm talking about content marketing, which is about creating interesting content, and by content I mean words and images and video, in order to get people to talk about your business and link to your website. Sometimes the content that you create might be published on your own website, like a picture of a cat. Or, well, it's not really about a picture of a cat, but if it's content that's on your own site, it might take the form of an interesting or funny image that make people want to talk about your business or share that image around. I'm obviously going to show you some better pictures than a cat meme, but believe me, pictures of cats get shared a hell of a lot. I've no idea why. So sometimes this content that you create, it might be to go on other people's websites. And if you put it on other people's websites, it might be something like an interesting article that you've come up with, which positions you and your website as an authority in that space. And I think it's worth also pointing out that this stuff, whatever anyone says, this content marketing buzzword, this thing that we're doing, it's not new. It used to be called PR. The difference is that now it's happening online rather than in the real world, and there's lots of tools and techniques that can help you get there. Ultimately, it's about putting your website and your business at the center of a network of websites and people who know about you and who talk about you. So what lies behind great content marketing? Well, it's about knowing what your audience, your potential customers, are interested in. What will get them to read the stuff that you've written? What will get them to tell their friends about it, to recommend it, to share it on Facebook? What problems are your customers facing that you can help solve? What day-to-day challenges are they facing or that they're looking for answers to? You should kind of know this stuff already because you've created and you're running your business in order to solve someone's problems. So you need to think about how else you can help your potential customers and get them to think about you as knowledgeable. So you need to work out what your audience is interested in before you start any of your content marketing exercises. So content marketing has a process to enable you to execute it. What's that process? Well, you come up with some ideas, you turn them into content, and then you need to find somewhere to publish that content. So it sounds really simple. Let's see if we can do it. Let's get some ideas. First of all, we all have ideas, but they don't come to you when you're sitting in a room having a brainstorm trying to come up with ideas. They'll typically come to you when you are in bed, when you're out shopping, when you're sitting on the train. And the single best piece of advice I've ever received is to note your ideas down when you have them. So I used to use a notebook. I now use this great tool called Evernote. It allows you to save any ideas, any images, any articles that you read, and then you can store them on all of your devices and read through them later. Second of all, make sure you have a list of the websites that are in your niche, the editorial sites that write about stuff your audience is interested in. Read their content. Find out what they're writing about. These sites all have editorial teams, and those teams are racking their brains trying to come up with ideas that are interesting to your audience. So try piggybacking on some of those ideas. Keep up to date with the latest content that these sites are producing. A good way to do that is with an RSS reader. I use feedly.com. It basically brings in all of their latest posts, and whenever I get 5 minutes, I can catch up on what they've been writing about. So for me, I'm interested in the kind of advice that businesses are interested in, kind of advice that people who are starting businesses are interested in. So I'll be reading sites like startups.co.uk, Marketing Donut, moz.com. And these sites, as I say, they all have editorial teams. They're thinking about what's interesting to my potential customers. So I'm going to read that and be inspired by it. Third, Find out what questions your audience are asking. If you know what questions your audience are asking, you'll know what your content should be answering. So Quora is a great place to find out what questions that people are asking. On Quora, people ask questions and have them answered by experts. So just search for a topic that you're interested in, and then you can find out what people really want to know. So here's an example. Let's say I have a running shoe shop, and I want to produce content that runners are interested in. So if I go to Quora, I type in running, I get a list of questions that have been voted as the most popular questions by a community of runners. So lo and behold, I've got some really good ideas about the kind of content that I might want to create. What are the top running technique suggestions? Should I run if I'm sore? What's the best pre-run meal? These are all ideas. If I can create content that answers these questions, that's going to be interesting to my potential customers. And each one of these isn't just an idea in isolation. Each of them can spark off a load more topics. For example, for the question, what are the best running techniques? There are really half a dozen related ideas to that. All of them can be turned into content that's interesting to my audience. Another great place to come up with ideas is Facebook. So if you've already set up your business on Facebook, or if you're active in a community, you can get ideas from the people that you interact with. And the best way to do that is just by asking a question. So one of our brands in Host Europe Group is called Heart Internet. And we wanted to produce some interesting content about how businesses can make their Facebook page look great. So we're lucky enough to have built up a community of web designers or people who have their own website. So it's a topic that they're really interested in. So we asked the question, how can you make your Facebook page look great and represent your brand effectively? So we only got 8 answers to that question. But the level of thought and detail that went into those answers meant that we immediately had a lot of content ideas on how to make a Facebook page look great. And we were able to turn that into a number of blog posts and an infographic. By the way, this isn't ripping ideas off other people. If you ask a question of a community and then you get some answers, it's called crowdsourcing. And if you are uncomfortable with taking people's ideas, then what you could do is reference them in the content that you produce. The chances are they'll have been chuffed to have been mentioned and will probably then share that article within their own group. Another great source of ideas is Google Consumer Surveys. I really encourage anyone to try out this tool. So here you can ask a survey, survey questions, and it costs 10 cents per answer, basically. So if you just spend $100, okay, it's a shoestring, it's not free, it's $100, you get a statistically valid survey back. So Google asks these questions of a random sample of the UK or US or Canadian audience you can specify. And users will answer the question in order to get access to premium content. So it's really easy to set up. And the survey takes just a few days. You get sent the results then. And at the end, you get loads of really interesting information. And it's all presented in compelling graphs, which you can turn into press releases, into articles, into infographics, and into blog posts. So here's an example survey that we ran to try and produce some content around the cloud, because the cloud is something that all technology companies seem to be talking about. So we wanted to find out if people actually knew what the cloud was. And it turns out they don't. Not only do they not know what it is, but they don't realize that they're using it every day with services like iTunes and Dropbox and so on. So you can manipulate the data to focus on specific respondents in your survey. For example, gender and age and geography. So it might be that you want to focus a bit of content just around a particular segment of your audience. And you get lots of options about how to display the data as well. Okay, so there's a few places which we can go to get some ideas of the content that we want to produce, but there's no point in having these ideas just for the sake of it. What are we going to do with them? They need to be turned into great content, and what's the easiest way to do that? Well, we need to start writing. But there's writing and there's writing. You need to be able to write in an interesting and engaging way that is easy to digest. Because people on the web, they don't read in the same way as they read newspapers or as they read books. The text that you produce that goes on the internet, it has to compete with some pretty interesting stuff. It has to compete with YouTube. It has to compete with Facebook. It's got to compete with pictures of cats. To start with, you need to know that blocks of text are just boring and they will not get read. At best, someone will read the first paragraph and then maybe read the top line of subsequent paragraphs. But the reality is, most people will see a page full of text, they'll read one line and they'll go, oh, I can't be bothered with this. So to start with, break up your content with some headlines. It looks less daunting to the readers, and they know they don't have to commit as much. And at worst, they can get the meaning of the article just by reading down the headlines. Next, try adding some bullet points. These help users quickly navigate to the most important points, and it gives them extra tools that they can use to retain it in their visual memory. And here's a cliche, but try breaking up your content with images, because images do speak 1,000 words, and they give people a different way to digest your content. When you're writing, try to use the active voice and not the passive voice. And what I mean by this is, don't let your readers only understand the meaning of a sentence when they get to the end of the sentence. Try to give that meaning early on in the sentence, knowing that they might tail off towards the end of it. So if we look at this, look at the difference between the cat sat on the mat, which is the active voice, and the mat was sat on by the cat, which is the passive voice. So with this sentence, I only find out the critical information, which it's the cat that sat on the mat, when I read the very last word in that sentence. It seems like a small thing, but I'm making the reader work harder to get a sense of what's happening here. Above all, the web is a visual medium. So you need to think about how you can turn the content that you've created into something that's really visually compelling. But fortunately, there are some great free tools to help you do that. First of all, Infogram. It's a great tool. You can create amazing, clear infographics that turn dry data into something that's really interesting to look at and to read. And you can illustrate your data and use anything from bubble charts to tree maps. Pictochart is another great free tool which you can use to turn your content into compelling visuals and infographics and charts. Who'd have thought that I would be at all interested in the three cultures of... who'd have thought that management culture could be interesting? Or in fact, customer service in Latin America. Wow, I couldn't ever read an article about it, but all of a sudden I'm reading an infographic about it. So it's through these great visuals that dry facts and stats and narrative can really come to life. So we've come up with some ideas, we've turned them into some content, and now we need to find somewhere to put that content. We want it to be consumed by an audience of people who we think are likely to buy our products, or if not, that will recommend our products to other people and will influence them. In other words, we need to find what websites are our potential customers spending their time reading. The great thing is that there are some tools that will help us discover this. First off, there's Google. Google can tell us which websites are important for people who are interested in particular topics. Just searching on Google will throw up a load of websites where we might want to try and get our content. So going back to my original example of my running shoe shop, if I search for running on Google, it brings up quite a few prospects, places that I might want to get my content. Although if I look a bit deeper, Runner's World and The Guardian down there, I mean, I don't think, I've just got a running shop, what's the chance that The Guardian are going to write about me? It's going to be pretty slim. So I probably need to get more specific. So here I am, being a bit more specific. I'm typing in running shoes, because I know that runners are obsessed with their trainers. And I've also told Google that I'm only interested in websites, in content that's actually placed on blogs. Because any website with a blog is really going to be desperate for the amazing content that I'm going to produce. It's also worth on Google looking under discussions to see what this reveals. So what's interesting here is that not only has Google brought back a load of websites that runners are interested in, but they've worked out that my running shop is actually in Tunbridge Wells. So many of these results are also local to Tunbridge Wells. And at the end of the day, I'm only going to be able to sell my running shoes to local people. So I've got some really relevant results here. In actual fact, there are loads of ways in which you can search on Google above just using a normal search query. So these are all called search operators. And you can use these in the search bar in order to get really relevant and precise results. But don't worry, I'm not expecting you to learn all these because there are tools that can help us do this without us needing to memorize this. So here's one, the BuzzStream link building query generator. So that can give you a list of potential searches you might want to do on Google that will bring back some relevant websites. So what you need to do is fill out this form in order to generate a list of potential search queries. So here we go. I'm using, in terms of product category, I've gone for shoes. I am looking at a target market of runners and using the keyword training. So I haven't captured the whole list, but there's a great big long list of searches that I can do on Google in order to find relevant websites. So just by clicking on one of these results, I'm going to do a search on Google which should bring back some stuff that's relevant. So here I've clicked on the one that said write for us and shoes. And I've got 5 really good prospects. So these are all websites asking people to get in touch with them if they want to write about running shoes. So that's exactly what I want to write about. But you saw how long that list was, and actually it goes down a lot further than that. Now, all of those searches are going to bring back relevant results. It's almost like we're running into another problem here. And this problem is that we have too many prospects now. We've got too many places to place our content. So we need to decide which of these are really worth it and which of them actually probably aren't being read by anyone. There's a tool that will help you do that. So the Moz, SEO Moz toolbar, which you can download for free at moz.com and install it on Firefox, it will score every website out of 100 with a metric that's called authority. So to keep it really simple, install this toolbar and use those scores that it gives for websites in order to evaluate whether a prospect is worth going after. That's what it looks like. So going back to the previous example, I've now installed the toolbar and I've done the same search again, and all of a sudden I can see which ones I'm going to put effort into contacting and which ones I'm not going to bother with. So anything over 60 is an amazing score. You definitely want to go for them. 40 is okay. 20 to 40, don't spend much time on that, and anything below 20 is just not worth your effort. If you're really getting the hang of this, and this really can be a process, you can turn it into a bit of a factory, a production line of prospects. You can download the top 100 results from Google. If you link the results to 100, you can download them all into a CSV, and then you can sort them by authority, so you can know that you can only grab, for example, everything over 40 or everything over 60. That will be your list of hottest prospects. So once you've found all of these prospects, so you've got your content ideas, you've turned them into content, you've found places you want to publish them, you now need to really narrow down what kind of content each of these prospects is publishing. But more importantly, when they do publish something, do people really like it? Now, the chances are that they're not going to let you see their Google Analytics so you can see which articles are most popular. But what you can see is which content got shared most on social media by looking at how many times it's been tweeted, how many Facebook likes it's had. But there again, it's quite long-winded. If you're talking about a blog, it might have 1,000 articles on. Are you really going to go through 1,000, noting down how many tweets it's had, how many Facebook likes it had? It's too long-winded. But don't worry, because there is another free tool for that. So this tool is called Social Crawlytics, and it can give you an almost instant view of the most shared content on any website. So here's a website that I found using BuzzStream, and one of its most shared articles was 5 unique marathons to run. So I know that article works really well on that website. So when I pitch this website with an idea for an article, I need to make it something that kind of chimes with that. So maybe epic runs to do before you die, or not to be missed races you might not have heard of, something like that. Got some really good clues there. And finally, there's one other way to go about finding places to publish your content, and that is to look out and try to find those writers who contribute to, or in fact have their own website. And the amusingly named follower wonk will help you find influential people on Twitter. And with some manipulation of the data, you can see which of those people on Twitter actually have a relevant website as well. So here I've switched my example. I'm imagining I'm a local restaurant, and I want to reach out to food bloggers to see if I can get them to take my content. So I've searched for food bloggers, and in the biography, so I've looked for www. Because anyone who is on Twitter who is promoting their website are going to write www. Within their biography. So I know that they're influential, and I know that they've got a relevant website that I might want to put my content on. So there's lots of really, really good prospects here that I might want to reach out to. For example, if I reach out to foodista.com and I can see what content they like, and they take one of my pieces of content, I know it's going to get seen by at least 300,000 people. So we've almost finished. But I wanted to say that I've presented this as a 3-step process. Come up with ideas, turn them into content, find places to publish them. But the reality is that it's actually more cyclical than that. There's no point in coming up with a great idea and then turning it into a great piece of content if you find a load of publishers and you contact them and they're just not interested in publishing it. So you might be as well off to find the publishers, see what kind of content that they seem to like publishing, and then come up with an idea from that point. So you need to think about this process happening in parallel. Okay, that's it. That was digital marketing on a shoestring. So my name's Nick, and now I'm going off to find some pictures of cats.
Thanks very much, Nick. Actually, Nick is a winner of the Isle of Wight Marathon amongst many others, as I found out, much to my detriment, one early morning some months back.